Good morning. Nice to see everybody. Some of you I recognize from last night, and maybe you don't recognize me, I'm not sure. My name is Heidi, and I'll be leading today's service. Reverend Mathew Alspaugh will be presenting this message this morning. Our opening words this morning are by Marnie Harmony. If on a starlit night, with the moon brilliantly shimmering, we stay inside and do not venture out, the evening universe remains a part of life we shall not know. If on a cloudy day, with grayness infusing all, and the rain dancing rivers on the grass, we stay inside and do not venture out, the stormy, threatening energy of the universe remains a part of life we shall not know. If on a frosty morning, dreading the chilling air before the sunrise, we stay inside and do not venture out, the awesome, cold, quiet, and stillness of dawn universe remains a part of life we shall not know. If throughout these grace-given days of ours, surrounded as we are by green life and brown death, hot pink joy and cold gray pain, and miracles, always miracles. If we stay inside ourselves and do not venture out, then the fullness of the universe shall be unknown to us, and our locked hearts shall never feel the rush of worship. Welcome, everybody. Now a special welcome to our visitors visiting us for the first time or having returned or reconnected with us after a long absence. We invite you to say your name and tell us where you're from. And if you are on Zoom, use the Zoom raise hand feature, or just turn your video on and wave your hand and we'll ask you to unmute. If you're in the room, raise your hand. We'll start with the people in the room. Anybody here that hasn't been here for a while that'd like to reconnect with us? Okay. Now, what about the people on Zoom? Is there anybody out there?
Nobody on Zoom.
All right. And just a brief note, we offer a wide variety of services on various topics presented by our members, outside guests, as well as our minister, the Reverend Mathew Alspaugh. We hope you will return to sample this variety of thought and belief. Our chalice lighting words today are by UU Minister Reverend Dr. David Breeden. We light this flame, reminding ourselves to treasure the magic in the mundane. The wonders of carbon dioxide, oxygen, nitrogen, rapid oxidation into light, heat, and the dance of a flame. We light the chalice, kindling, remembering our innate sense of wonder at the very real magic of our world. Now let us light our chalice with these words that we sing together. We kindle this light in celebration for the life that we share. Our opening hymn is Find a Stillness. Please rise as you're willing and able and join me in singing.
Find the stillness, hold the stillness, let the stillness carry me. Find the silence, hold the silence, let the silence carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit given by, I will find true harmony. Seek the essence, hold the essence, let the essence carry me. Let me flower, let me flower, watch me flower carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony.
Thank you. That was lovely. Each week, we take time to remind ourselves that we are part of a community which cares for each other, which the sharing of joys, sorrows, and milestones is one way that we practice holding one another in community. We speak what is in our hearts, briefly sharing any significant joys or sorrows in our lives because there is power in sharing. We will start with the folks in the room to give those on Zoom a chance to type joys and sorrows into the chat to be read out loud by the Zoom host. First, let us hear the joys here in the room.
Hi, my name is Phyllis. We're celebrating my husband's birthday this Wednesday, and we're very excited about it.
Excellent, great.
I'm Barley, and I hope you all like the seating arrangement today. I do.
Okay, I think somebody over here, yes.
My name is Tim. A couple of weeks ago, I brought up my sister in the concerns part of this conversation. And I'm happy to report that she's doing much better. I spoke to her yesterday. She lives in Michigan. She's in a rehab facility. I think she may be able to return home as soon as tomorrow. Very happy about that. Thank you.
Excellent, wonderful. And back here, we'll start here.
I'm Susan Miller, and my great joy is that a year ago today, we were at our daughter's wedding in Arlington, Virginia, and it's amazing how quickly the year has passed.
My name is Sue, and I'd like to light a candle of joy and silence.
And over here, Michael.
Pardon. Yes, you know me, I'm Michael. Yeah, it's great being center stage. I'm very happy, I'm very joyful about that. But the joy I have is that yesterday, the orchestra, the Lake Chapala Orchestra that I'm music director of, had its very first rehearsal with our soloist who flew in from New York, Saul Ibarra, who flew in from New York on Friday. It's the first time, we've only got 2 rehearsals, so, you know, it was fabulous. I mean, this guy is just a phenomenal pianist, and those of you that have heard him know what a genius he is. The orchestra was bowled over. Both concerts next Friday and Saturday completely sold out, but we have decided to open up the dress rehearsal, which is on Thursday. And I would like to invite all of you to come to the dress rehearsal. It's free admission. We just ask for a little donation on the way out to help cover costs. You will hear the full 45-piece orchestra with Saul Ibarra. We're doing the Schubert Symphony and the Rachmaninoff Second Piano Concerto. You don't have to have tickets. You just turn up. It will start promptly at 1 o'clock. So you are all invited, and that's my joy.
At the Presbyterian Church. Yeah, at the Presbyterian Church, right?
I forgot to tell you where it is. Thank you. It's at Lakeside Presbyterian Church, just up the road, 250 San Jorge. You can't miss it. Great big red building.
I'm Adele St. Pierre, and I'm happy to announce that I became a member of UU today.
Okay.
Get up here. I'm David, and I want to express gratitude for the miracle, the gift of the victory for democracy that the past election in the States was.
Yes.
Hi, I am Devora, and this may sound like a strange joy, but my daughter, Leela, has been working for a long time on healing ancestral wounds. And yesterday, we had an opportunity to heal some of her childhood wounds, and I was able to listen to her with my heart, and that feels really good.
Hi, I'm Priscilla, and as we probably all know, tomorrow is a very important day for Mexico, the Virgin of Guadalupe Day, so that's a joy. A personal joy is that after 10 days on Prozac, my dog is able to tolerate it a bit better.
Okay.
Anybody else? Are there any joys to be shared on Zoom?
Yes, there are, from Garrett Browning. Then
We'll come back to those.
Okay. We'll get back to you folks when we get things sorted out. There seems to be a slight glitch. Now, let us voice our sorrows here in the room. Whatever you may be holding that is in need of our communal healing and our caring thoughts. Are there any sorrows that people would like to share here in the room?
Hi, I'm Colleen. I have a concern for my dear friend Chrissy's partner, Peter. He's an Ayurvedic practitioner. You might have seen him, really tall guy. He is in San Diego right now. He went for an operation. He thought it was going to be a stent. It was a full-on open heart surgery with a repair of valves. So he's in a lot of pain and she's really concerned. So your good thoughts and prayers would be appreciated.
Ooh. Yes.
My name is Sue. I'd like to light a candle of concern for Marcia Fowler. If you'll remember, she's given services here. She's in the hospital with vertigo. Ooh.
Any others? Maybe we can go back on Zoom and if we've been able to connect with them, to share the joys and the sorrows, if there are any to be shared.
First, joy from Garrett Browning. Much gratitude for you wonderful people at LCUUF, especially for your embracement of Sharon Robinson, the gift of a lifetime for her. I have never met a more singularly gracious group of people. And then a concern from Tom McClure, concern for those people of Ukraine who are experiencing constant bombardment and dealing with a severe winter without heat, water, and power. And that's what we have.
Are there any sorrows?
That was the sorrow. It was a concern.
And this candle from our care team represents those joys and those sorrows that are not yet ripe for words, that for now remain in our silent sanctuary of our hearts. We light this candle for all those unspoken joys and sorrows. Let us share a moment of silence to hold in our hearts both the sorrows and the joys that have been shared this morning.
So I invite all of you, whether you're here or at home, to rise in body or spirit and join me as we use our bodies to locate ourselves in the universe. Now, those of you who are at home might want to take a moment and think about which way is north for you. For us here at the fellowship, north is toward the mountains, this way. So first, we are here on the earth. Let us point first to the center of the earth below us, some 3,200 kilometers below us. If we could move at the speed of light, the fastest speed possible, we could be there in 100th of a second. Now, our Earth's moon is roughly over here, just below the horizon to the west-northwest. And I invite you to point to it without poking your neighbor, if that's possible. And it's just a second away by the speed of the light. And our sun is over here to the southeast, about halfway up, about 40 degrees up. And it is just 8 minutes away by the light. Now, Mars, our nearest neighbor planet, is to the northwest, it's below the horizon right now. So it's down like this. And it's about 5 minutes away right now by the light. Now, remember the sun? Well, also Venus is over here very near the sun right now. It's a little east and a little lower than the sun, and it's about 15 minutes away by the light. Now, Jupiter, our largest planetary neighbor, is over on the horizon to the west, It's about 3/4 of an hour away by the light. Let's move out of the solar system now. Alpha Centauri, the nearest star to us, is directly to the south at this moment, just over the horizon. It's 4 years away by the light. And I'm delighted that it's a star we can see here from Mexico. Polaris, the North Star, is up the other way to the north, obviously, about 20 degrees above the horizon here at our location in Mexico. And it is 430 light years away, years by the light. Now, remember the sun again? It turns out that at this moment, the center of our Milky Way galaxy is directly behind the sun at this time. It is 25,000 years away by the light. Now, our galaxy is not alone. It is part of a group of galaxies that is known as the Virgo cluster. And it is over here to the west, very high in the sky right now, about 60 degrees up. It is 50 million light years away by the light. So our galaxy is part of this big collection that obviously is huge. But let's get bigger. The center of the universe? Well, let's start with the edge of the observable universe. And it is all around us. It is 46 billion years away by the light. But the center of the universe, we are each at the center of the universe, as is every other thing, every other being in the universe. So let us take our seats and have a little time of silence as we ponder our place in the universe. So small we are, so insignificant, and yet here we are at the center of everything, like everything else. Let us ponder this in silence.
Today's reading is by Barbara Brown Taylor, from her book, Learning to Walk in the Dark. Last year, Anna and her mother came to spend the night. She was about 8 on the day that I'm remembering, a blonde second grader, built like an old-fashioned wooden clothespin with straight legs and a round top. Since she lived in the city, I had planned a number of country activities, including one of the absolute best activities there is to do on a farm: moving young chickens from one pen to another after dark. This can be done during the day, but it's not pretty. If you try to catch a wide awake chicken in a pen, they will scream, fling themselves against the chicken wire, and as if they have heard all the stories about people wringing their necks and eating them for supper. They crash into each other. They lose their feathers. They threaten to die of fright right there in front of you. But go into a chicken house at night, and it is like they have had 2 martinis. Anybody familiar? They chuckle to each other. And when you come through the door, they are shifting around on their perches and turning their heads to the side to get a better look at you. If your flashlight is not too bright and you move slowly enough, you can catch You can reach each right over and pick them up, tucking at least 5 in your apron and a couple of under one arm. The others will patiently wait right where they are until you come back for them, making as many trips as necessary to deliver all of them to their new home. I thought Anna would enjoy this. For once the sun was down, I invited her to come with me to the chicken house. You'll love this, I said. Follow me. The chicken house was only about 50 yards from the house, down the hill from the garage, across a patch of tall grass. The moon was so bright that night that we did not really need a flashlight, but I took one anyway. Walking ahead a couple of feet ahead of her to shine a beam in the direction of where we're going. I can't see, she complained when we turned the corner into the relative darkness beyond the garage. It's not far, I said. I said, going ahead to light the way, your eyes will get used to it in a minute. Don't worry. The day had been warm, so moving through the wet grass was like walking through a sprinkler. The first fireflies were blinking in the woods, and a whole choir of cicadas was singing in the trees. Isn't it great? I asked. But there was no one behind me. Turning around, I scanned the grass with a flashlight, catching the gleaming eyes of the dew on grass, but no human eyes above them. Heading back up the hill, I found Anna, immobilized by fear in the wet grass on a beautiful moonlit night. It was not her fault. It was mine for forgetting that she was a city girl and that walking in the dark takes some practice. But it was also the fault of everyone who taught her to fear the dark, convincing her that it's dangerous. All of it, all the time. Under every circumstance, that what she cannot see will almost certainly hurt her, and that the best way to protect herself from such unseen malfeasance is to stay inside after dark with the doors locked and sleep with the lights on. I do not doubt that her teachers did it because they love her. They did not want her to be kidnapped or run over bitten by a big dog. When you love a child, you do not even want to allow the possibility of her stepping on a piece of broken glass in the dark or twisting her ankle when she steps off a curb she cannot see, or being frightened by the sound of a screech owl. Teach her to fear the dark by forbidding her to go into it by herself. Accepting as collateral damage the loss of falling stars, glowworms, moonlight on spider webs, night owls, cicada songs, and moving chickens in the dark.
These are the darkest days of the year. In a few weeks, we'll celebrate winter solstice, and the days will begin to lengthen. Even here in Mexico, we notice this. Our bodies attune to this cycle, although it's not nearly as pronounced as it is in the northern latitudes. If we do not venture out into this darkness, we lose a part of life. As the opening reading told us, if we stay inside and do not venture out, then there will be parts of the universe that we will not know. Early in my days as minister at the Youngstown UU congregation, I would sometimes talk of the world, of the universe that we did not know, the sacred parts, the spiritual world, the mystical reality beyond the everyday physical world of trees and cars and houses and neighbors. And I'd sometimes use the word mystery to describe these spiritual or mystical things. Now, I thought mystery was a perfectly good word, for it encapsulated the idea that we did not fully understand the spiritual and the sacred in the same way that we understand, say, how to drive a car or how to steam some vegetables. But whenever I use that word mystery, I noticed a resistance from the congregation, a kind of a silent rejection. And finally, I inquired of one of them who told me why mystery was a problematic word. It turns out that most of this congregation were formerly Catholic. And for the Catholics, the word mystery has a very different meaning. There are certain things, mysteries, that one cannot know, that we cannot understand. They are things like the virgin birth of Jesus and the resurrection of Christ. More to the point, these are things that we cannot even question. We are not to even ask about them. We are supposed to just accept them on faith. So as people who found their way into Unitarian Universalism, they cherished the right to question, and the word mystery did not work for them. They, like me, could accept that there are things about the world that we do not understand, but we are not forbidden from trying to understand those things. We can learn, we can explore, we can try to find out. We can venture out into the dark to widen our knowledge about the world. Now, I want to note that my experience with Catholicism has led me to understand it's not a monolithic religion. When I lived in Minnesota, I attended a silent men's retreat with a bunch of lay Catholic men at a Jesuit retreat center. And I found that experience surprisingly liberal. At the same time, as a result, during much of my time in Youngstown, I began to drive over to a convent in Pennsylvania once a month to make a retreat day with the nuns. There, these women who were also surprisingly liberal, ecological, working to care for the earth. I'm glad no one there expected me to set my mysteries aside as things I could not explore. Nobody tried to coach me as 8-year-old Anna's caregivers had in the story, that the dark, the mysterious was too dangerous to explore. The author of that story, Barbara Brown Taylor, was a professor of world religions before she retired to her farm, and an amazing preacher. I've heard her. In her book, Learning to Walk in the Dark, she advises us to turn out the lights and explore spiritual darkness, for the dark has much to teach us. And yet, one does have to be careful of the dark. When I'd tent camp in some remote spot in the Colorado mountains, I'd invariably have to get up and pee in the middle of the night. It would be freezing, and I'd want to hurry, but I knew I had to be careful wandering out of the tent to avoid running into a tree or tripping over a rock in the dark. And I didn't want to wander too far away, for there was no light to guide me back. In the same way, a free and unfettered exploration of the unknown, the mysterious, is important, but it must be done responsibly, with care. Our fourth principle wisely suggests this, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Now, certainly these days, a great problem is with careless chasing after of untruths, spreading and amplifying falsehoods, conspiracy theories, and general crackpottery. I think of old friends and relatives, admittedly more distant now, who spew beliefs about chips and vaccines, stolen elections, and QAnon. They, in my mind, are lost in the dark, and I fear they may not find their way home. Even with the risk of wandering off and becoming lost in the dark, in the unknown, let us not fail to venture out, but with care, to encounter wonder, to enjoy mystery, to know the fullness of the universe. The wondrous joy of discovery is real. When I volunteered at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, we often had opportunities to participate in other programs offered by the museum. One of those was a trip to a paleontology research dig in a prairie east of Denver. We traveled by bus to this site, the location of which we were asked to keep secret. This was before the days when every phone had a GPS in it. We visited various research digs that the research team had going in gullies and washes in the area. At one site, Kirk Johnson, one of the research paleontologists at the museum, pointed out among several layers of soft, exposed rock, this one thin layer, maybe a half an inch thick, that represented the KPG boundary. This is the dividing line between the Cretaceous and the Paleogene periods in geologic history. This dividing line is the line between the reign of the dinosaurs and the time when dinosaurs no longer existed. This thin layer was the marker, or is the marker, of that catastrophic meteor impact 65 million years ago that wiped out the dinosaurs and a significant number of other species on Earth. That meteor, as you may know, impacted right here in Mexico in the Yucatan Peninsula. But the effect was spread worldwide in this thin layer, which can be found everywhere in the ancient rocks. We verified that the dinosaurs disappeared by looking for dinosaur bones around the site. Some of us did find small fingernail-sized bits of fossilized dinosaur bones. These were not worth preserving, and Kirk called them by the generic name Chunkosaurus. One person did find something interesting that Kirk took back to the museum. I'm not a very good dinosaur spotter, so I found nothing. But here's the deal. We found all these bits of dinosaur, these Chunkosaurus bones, below that thin layer. In the landscape above the layer, we found nothing. Touching this thin layer, putting my fingers on it, had as much significance as touching a martyr's relic in some European cathedral. Actually, for me, it had more significance. I could feel, at least at some level, a sadness for all the life forms that ceased to exist in that short time, a day, a week, a few months. I also felt the chill, for this thin layer, this boundary represented contingency, the randomness, the seeming senselessness of the universe. It symbolized the reality of constant transition and churn. It reminded me that all creatures and all people will one day die. Since we're on this wonderful topic of extinction, let me show you a short video.
Today we have a beautiful guest video for you by Robert Krulwich and Nate Milton.
Imagine a house, a normal house with the usual appliances, dishwashers, refrigerators, vacuum cleaners, and of course, an electricity bill, which comes every month. Now, we're going to make this a Kentucky home because in Kentucky, they get almost all their energy from coal. And since we all know that coal is a fossil fuel, here's an idea. Let's go back and meet the fossils who died to light up this house. Well, we're going to have to go way, way back to the Carboniferous period. That's about 300 million years ago. And this here is a typical forest from that time. And this is a typical tree called a lepidodendron, long, skinny tree. They sprouted up as plants do, soaking in sunshine, absorbing carbon from the air so they could grow and grow and grow. And then, of course, they died, to be replaced by another set of lepidodendrons that also grew and died, another that grew and died, and another that grew and died. So after millions and millions of years, the layers of all these dead plants pressed down one on top of the other, concentrating all that ancient carbon and ancient sunshine into a hard black rock that we call coal. So just for the fun of it, let's say our house here in Kentucky uses roughly 1,000 kilowatt hours of coal-powered electricity in a month. That's about average. Can we figure out how many of those ancient trees are in effect being harvested to power this home for 1 month? Well, it turns out that 1,000 kilowatt hours, that's the electricity bill, comes from burning about a half ton of coal, which is the energy equivalent of 2 ancient trees, each one about 60 feet high. So that is what this home is burning every month, 2 old trees worth of carbon. Now, if we go for a year of electricity, that would be 24 of these trees. And then over a decade, over 10 years, we're up to 240 trees. And now you've kind of used up a mini forest of ancient energy just to power your home. And that does not include, by the way, the family car. Now, cars, we all know, also use fossil fuels. Gasoline does come from oil, and oil comes from, once again, ancient plants, but not trees this time. No. Oil comes from much, much teenier plant-like creatures, so small you can't see them with your eyes. But you do find them in the ocean, drifting about, rolling around, using sunshine to absorb carbon and grow and multiply. There are trillions, actually 1,000 trillion of these teeny plants in the sea. They're called phytoplankton. They're the basic food of the ocean, eaten by little guys and the big guys. And 100 million years ago, there were phytoplankton living in the oceans. And when they died, and their babies died, and the babies of those babies died, the ocean bottoms were gradually littered with sunshine-rich remains, creating a layer of stored carbon that, under pressure from the mud above and the heat below, compressed first into rock and then, under even greater pressure, turned into a black liquid that we now call oil. So today, when you pump a gallon of gasoline into your car, you are mostly pumping the squeezed remains of countless ancient microplants into your car engine. Well, actually, no, they're not really countless because we can count them based on their carbon content. So we calculate that when you turn on the engine and step on the gas and go, for every inch of highway, you are crunching 20 billion ancient plants through your car engine. That is 20 billion for every highway inch. So if your grandma lives a mile down the road, that works out to 1,200 trillion plants giving up their energy to move you to grandma's, who, when she turns on the lights to say hi, she's using energy from ancient trees. So we are constantly using carbon that's been locked in the ground for millions of years, digging it up and putting it back to work. Well, for you and for me. We today are ravenous for old sunshine, so much so that if you add up all the coal and all the oil and all the natural gas that we humans use to power our lives in just one recent year, we'll choose the year 2018, and then think just for a second of all the ancient organisms that had to get squished down to make those fossil fuels. So that would be the old carboniferous trees and the carboniferous plants and the phytoplankton and ancient plant eaters, the little ones and the big ones in the sea, on the land. All those old organisms that got crunched into fossil fuels, if you drop all that old life into the container that we call Earth and burn them, It turns out that what we burn in 1 year weighs 100 times more than everything alive today. Everything. All the living whales and the elephants and the forests and insects and grass and crops and birds and fish and people, dogs and cats. Add up all the carbon in everything alive now, and still, in 1 year, we burned 100 times more. Or to put it another way, we humans gobbled up 100 Earths worth of ancient life. That's 55 trillion tons of ancient carbon in a single year. That's a lot of fossil fuel, and we are using it up very, very fast.
That's all right. Now, this would be a very good video for a talk on sustainability and climate change and the need to move away from fossil fuels, but that's for another time, so I won't go there today. Instead, the video raises a question. Why did most of that coal form in that particular period of time? That coal production mostly happened during a period from 360 million years ago to 300 million years ago. This is the so-called Carboniferous period. A good choice of name, obviously. One intriguing theory advanced a decade ago is that while all those tall, woody lipodendron trees died and fell down, they did not decay as trees do today. This was because the white rot fungus that decays wood hadn't developed yet. So the result of this is this waste material of dead, undecaying trees piled up, ultimately getting compressed and becoming the source of coal, as the video suggested. But there was a knock-on effect. Since the trees were not decomposing, no carbon dioxide was being added to the atmosphere. In fact, these trees created a lot of oxygen. So the oxygen levels increased till they were like 1.5 times they are today. And the carbon dioxide levels declined. So the effect was that this cooled things down, kind of a reverse global warming, and an ice age occurred. The result was an extinction event, and a lot of species disappeared. Now, this explanation is controversial, and there's alternative views. Still, I think there's something poetic about this. 300 million years ago, we had an extinction event caused by trees leaving too much waste material behind, their dead bodies, which became coal. And today we have a potential extinction event, the Anthropocene, caused by humans burning up too much of that coal, that waste material from ancient trees, and in the burning, we make our own waste, carbon dioxide. It's worth pondering, wondering about what should we do with that waste? How do we deal with all this carbon dioxide we've put into the atmosphere? How do we avoid another extinction event? Our planet, the life on it, the combined biology that some have called Gaia, has endured 5, maybe 6 great extinction events and many more minor ones. Yet despite those, or perhaps because of them, we are here. We endure. To me, this is delightful, wondrous news that while in our natural world, individual beings live and die, and so species are created and die out, and at the same time, the majority of life on Earth is lost, and still we prevail. Still we are here. Somehow this gives me hope. I know I have only a small contribution to make to the future, and yet I am also at the center of the universe, as are you, and you, and you. I do not know precisely how we will deal with global warming that we have created by burning all these ancient trees and ancient marine creatures. I do have hope and faith that we will find a way through this challenge of global climate change. And a key to my faith is that we can embrace the mystery, that we are willing to venture out into the dark and into the unknown and find those things that might save us and bring them back into the light. Albert Einstein, when he was very old, said, and I quote, "Do not grow old, no matter how long you live. Never cease to stand like curious children before the great mystery into which you were born. The important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing. One cannot help but be in awe in the contemplation of eternity, of life, the marvelous structure of reality. It is enough if you merely try to comprehend a little of the mystery every day. Never lose a holy curiosity." Never lose a holy curiosity. May we be willing to venture out into the darkness of our curiosity. May we find our way into a better understanding of life, of eternity, of reality. May we continue to stand curious before the great mystery that is our universe. May it be so.
There are many ways to be of service to LCUUF. Our time, treasure, and talents all are necessary components to a healthy fellowship. Now is the time in our service when we ask you to share the gift of treasure through pledging and donations. Instructions for donations to the fellowship are on slide during the announcements before the service every week. For the people here at the fellowship, we'll pass a basket. If you are new here today, or you are struggling to hold things together, let the baskets pass you by. Your presence is more than enough and is a gift to us all. And while you're considering your gifts to the fellowship, remember that each month, LCUUF donates 5,000 pesos or more to an organization in our lakeside community. We share 1/2 of the offering collected at the fellowship each week with that organization. For 1 month in December, for the month of December, we are supporting Poco a Poco, which helps people in the San Pedro Itzican area. One of the services they provide is feeding children and adults who are vulnerable to kidney disease. They now have 6 community kitchens in the area. We will now have our closing hymn.
Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being it all. Keep with the web of creation your vow. Giving, receiving, as love shows us how. Wake now my reason, reach out to the new. Join with each pilgrim who quests for the true. Honor the beauty and wisdom of time. Suffer thy limit and praise the sublime. Wake now, compassion. stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end. Waiting on my patience with justice by guide. Join with all people whose rights are denied. Take not for granted a privileged place. God love embraces the whole human race. Wake now my vision of ministry clear. Brighten my pathway with radiance here. Mingle my calling with all who will share. Work toward a planet transformed by our care.
Let me close today with a poem by Mary Oliver called Mysteries, Yes. Truly, we live with mysteries too marvelous to be understood. How grass can be nourishing in the mouths of lambs. How rivers and stones are forever in allegiance with gravity while we ourselves dream of rising. How two hands touch and the bonds will never be broken. How people come from delight or the scars of damage to the comfort of a poem. Let me keep my distance always from those who think they have the answers. Let me keep company always from those who say, look, and laugh in astonishment and bow their heads. May it be so, and blessed be.
Let us extinguish our chalice with these words, which we read together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we keep in our hearts and share with the world. Our postlude, Santa Claus is coming to town. Our worship is over and service begins. Go in peace and with purpose.